Hey Smugby, I enjoy these. I don't know why. I love extra normal movies. I've played in there for just a few minutes. I want to play with it more. Maybe do a little Socratic dialogue with that thing. Yeah, the first set of things about the world and the perceptions and basically the effect that perceived ramifications have on your decision. I agree with all that, but I believe the will is constrained, which is why truly I believe in willpower, will within bounds. Because certainly your perception of the ramifications of a decision can be compelling, especially if there's not competing contradictory ramifications. But still, we do deal with competing ramifications. On the one hand, you're afraid of terrorism on the plane, so that is a perceived ramification of going on the plane, and yet the train's a lot slower, and that's a perceived ramification. And really, it doesn't affect a fine-tuned discussion about free will, unless you're talking to somebody who by free will means that you can just will anything, okay, which you're not. I'm a materialist. So choosing between options is the kind of free will that I'm talking about, not the freedom to have any option or change around options or imagine away ramifications or anything like this. And now, most interesting thing you point out is this idea that you could spend your whole life doing what you like, but can you choose what you like? And here is where I say yes, you do have some choice. You can influence what you like. I mean, for example, what about an acquired taste? Do you believe there's such a thing as an acquired taste? Because if so, then you acquire it through an action of will that then slowly gets you to acquire that taste if you're going to acquire it at all. Now, there's some automatic parts to this. Maybe you'll never acquire the taste. Maybe you won't have the willpower to try to acquire the taste. But the thing is, you have something compelling you to acquire it, something compelling you not to. And it seems to me that you can choose this. And I'll give another example. When I was 18, 20, or actually younger than that, probably more like 16, I started to realize that my view of feminine beauty was distorted by the media, by airbrushing, by the expectations of the media and whom had been put in front of me as epitomes of beauty in this media. So I decided that was bullshit, and I sought to have a better attitude about it. Now totally tear I can't totally make my concept of feminine beauty into, out of whole cloth. But I could tear away a lot of the bullshit and change it around so that it looks like something very, very different. So I think that we do have some influence. In fact, I think we have more influence on what we like tomorrow than we have on what we do today. If you find yourself doing something today and thinking, oh, I wish I wouldn't do that, then the best means you have to exert your will to change your behavior is to try to change what you like, to think it over, visualize what you like, visualize the ramifications, visualize a longer time period over which you're judging the ramifications. So rather than, for example, an instantaneous gratification being your means and criteria of telling if it's a good thing, a longer term, how does it work over 24 hours or a week or a month or a year or 50 years? All right. So, so that's that. Now on to the beauty emerging. I would not say that I don't believe in emergent properties. I just believe that properties emerge from the combination. So there has to be a part contributor in the parts. So there's a conservation of behavior in this, but it's still emergent because colorless chemicals can come together in a particular organization and have a interact with their surroundings in such a way have that they behave in a way we call having a color. So those properties of reflecting light, they're not really, in an ontological sense, very similar to the way we perceive it when they come together as color. But there always has to be some constituent. So in that sense, I could see why, you might say I don't believe in emergent properties, in the sense that I don't believe it's possible for some complex to have a property that isn't going to be explained somehow through an interaction, through explaining the interactions of the parts. But I would call that an emergent property. It emerges because in certain configurations, uh, that's the way those properties of the parts add up. Okay, so furthermore, in terms of beauty, you point out what everybody points out, that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's in that mind, it's conditioning, perhaps it's hardwiring from evolution, and so on and so forth. And I will point out that the mind is material. It's made of material. Okay, and this should go hand in hand with your argumentation, because this is really why people believe that there might not be any free will, because the brain is material, and we think that material is necessarily unfree. But my point of saying the beauty is a physical property is to say it's not a physical property of the flower, but it is a physical property of the perceiver and the flower. The perceiver that perceives it as beautiful and the flower together as a complex system have a property of beauty emerged within it as a physical property. I think I won't go into the stuff about Brownian motion there, but it is funny because anytime you talk about phenomena like Brownian motion that have some classical treatments, generally speaking, the quantum treatment has improved the accuracy of that to a great degree, because at that level, while classical approaches can be very good approximations, you start to get into problems because of the difference between continuous and discrete functions, or continuous and discrete logic. Now, I didn't look this up. If I was going to go into it, I'd look this up more to see what the effect, and I don't quite remember. I know that there's a quantum impact on things like black body radiation, which actually has a very good way of a very good classical derivation, but was not as accurate in its full scale of predictions until quantum mechanics was applied to it. And the final thing is I just want to say about determinism and quantum mechanics. And thank you for not saying that I say quantum mechanics comes from the will, because my use of quantum mechanics in this argument is simply to point out that it is the determinism which is the illusion. So we can't argue from the determinism, the deterministic conclusion against will, in my opinion. Okay. Many people in these comments to these videos are constantly saying, oh, well, but the world would just be chaos. But that's not how probability works. If I flip a coin, then, and my life depends on it, then I may die, I may not. It's chaos might be the wrong word, but certainly random. But if I flip the coin 1,000 times, other things become possible. And of course, we're in a world where the laws of statistics are always at play, both sociologically, in terms of all the matter around us. There's so many discrete elements that the laws of statistics come into play. So if I'm going to live or die based on the next coin flip, I would call that random. I would say I have no control of that. That randomness robs me of control. How, compared to if I can just put the coin on heads, if heads is what makes me live. But if I flip the coin 1,000 times, a lot of other things become possible, right? Like if somebody says, look, you can flip the coin as many times as you want, but you need to get 400 heads, and you have to tell me how many times you want to flip it ahead of time. Well, I can do that. If they, I could do that, right? If I flip it 1,000 times, I'm going to get 400 heads or 400 tails, whichever I want. Or let's say there was a food device that gives me some morsel of food 9 times out of 10. 1 time out of 10, it gives me some poison. Well, if I'm just eating every single piece of food, then when and if I'm poisoned, and how severely, like if there's 2 poison in a row, it is random. And it again takes away my ability to choose. If, on the other hand, I'm a willful creature,